Hello ladies and gents, I'm the Beanie 101 and I'm here with another NHL video. This time focusing on NHL 18. The good guys over at EA Sports have recently released a new gameplay trailer and they've also dropped a huge amount of information about the features that you can expect in NHL 18. So this video is going to talk to you about everything we know about gameplay, presentation, all of the game modes, and some of the things that are going to be changing from NHL 17 to NHL 18. So keep tuned. As always, if you enjoy the video, please don't forget to hit that like button, as it does help other people find my content. And if you want to catch all of my NHL stuff first, then consider subscribing. But we're going to get straight to it, and I'm going to talk about the main fundamentals that everybody's concerned about in NHL 18, and that is improvements and changes to the gameplay. Now, first things first, deking is definitely going back to its roots. Some of the dekes that went missing when NHL moved from the Xbox 360 and PS3 era to the current generation of consoles, they're all making a return. So one-handed dekes are back, backhand toe drags, but also there's some newer moves that we can expect, like some between-the-legs passes and shots, some lofted chip shots like the infamous Datsuk breakaway move, and EA have also created a system where we're able to branch these dekes together much more fluidly, allowing users to string moves together. There's going to be more responsiveness because you can break out of those canned animations. I'm keen to get my hands on it and see how it works in practice. I think if you hark back to the likes of NHL 13 and NHL 14, where you had a real suite of tools at your disposal, it was a lot of fun. So I'm glad we're getting back to the stage now where we have more tools to have fun with the game and show off our creativity. We've also been asking for it for years, and it's finally here. We've got something to counter all of these offensive moves, and that is a defensive skill stick. I, for one, have been shouting from the rooftops for this kind of change in NHL for absolutely years, and so I'm really happy to see that it's in there this time round. Finally, we're going to have full control of how we position our sticks without the puck. That's whether we're skating forwards, whether we're skating backwards, we're going to be able to move our stick around and effectively take away passing lanes and shooting lanes, and you know, it's going to mean that people are going to be able to play the defensive side of the game with much more skill, rather than just trying to position yourself in the right sort of location and hoping that you pick up loose pucks. Another thing that's been changed is the passing engine. Apparently EA have tweaked the way that passing works to allow for better breakouts. Certainly things like passes banked off the boards and passing into space rather than directly to someone's stick. Those are all things that have been worked on and hopefully work a little bit better. EA've also said that puck pickups have been amended, and there are more animations that have been added. Now, supposedly puck pickups was something that had improved last year, but we all know that a lot of players, when you got your hands on the game, had a lot of trouble picking up pucks, especially slow-moving pucks that were close to your feet. So if they have improved the amount of animations, and if they have improved pickups, I think it's going to be a very, very welcome change. However, because they focused on it last year as well, I'm going to reserve my judgment until I see this in action. On the presentation side, there's not a huge amount that's changed. Apparently Ray Ferraro is getting a few more lines of dialogue, but otherwise Doc and Eddie are going to return, and they're going to be fantasizing about young ladies in Shawinigan and all that good stuff, but presentation is largely going to be unchanged, with the exception of one of the new modes that we're going to see, and that is the new threes mode. Now this is born out of the EA development team having to write a lot of new AI and a lot of new scripting for 3-on-3 overtime, which also makes its debut in the game this year. But threes mode is designed to be very much an arcade fun mode with good degrees of accessibility. So things like deking and hitting difficulty have been tuned down so that it's much easier to pull off some of the fancier moves and dekes, and as well as being able to show off with some bone-crushing hits. They've tried to make the modes more pick up and play, so you're going to see some more arcade-driven features. There's going to be much more colour, much more pizzazz to the game modes compared to your average NHL game. And also the rink is going to be around 75% of the size of a standard NHL rink, so there's less space to work with to keep the puck active as much as physically possible. Threes mode is going to be available in a play now format, but you can also play threes in online versus or in a single player circuit mode where you control a team called the Refrigerators, and that's going to give you a group of random players, and gradually as you play through the game modes you're going to be earning new players, new uniforms, new mascots as you beat other teams, and some of those unlocks are going to be dependent upon how well you play, and some of the unlocks are going to be dependent upon what sort of teams you're beating. So if you beat the Pittsburgh Penguins, maybe you get one of the Penguins players to join your team and bolster your ranks. Moving on to franchise mode, the biggest ticket item here is the fact that we've included what we would all expect, and that is the expansion draft. So you can take the Las Vegas Knights through the expansion process, or you can custom your own personal team to take Las Vegas's place and go through that expansion. If you want to still play as an existing NHL team, you can of course choose to play as the Maple Leafs or the Canucks or any of the other NHL teams, and in that format you're going to have to choose which players that you want to protect and which players you are willing to expose to the expansion draft, and figure out and find out which of your players Las Vegas is going to pluck from your grasps. It's important to note that the expansion draft is only available if you want to start a new franchise. You can't start up a franchise mode, play for a few years with 31 teams, and then decide, you know what, I want to add an expansion draft and add this Las Vegas team a few years down the line. Nope, you're going to have to start a new franchise by scratch. So something to bear in mind for all of you guys. Also, some of the other changes to franchise mode. Finally, we're going to have the opportunity to do some mid-season contract extensions. One of the bugbears that I think a lot of people had with franchise mode was that you had to wait until the end of the season to negotiate all your contracts. Not particularly realistic, so now you can negotiate new contracts throughout the season, especially for your pending free agents, and the current collective bargaining agreement rules are going to apply as well as they can do within the realms of the game. Things like player potential and player progression have also seen changes. This is something that EA tends to do every year with a mixed bag of results. There's always some anomalies, but the hope here is that players are going to be able to develop more organically. So I think that what that probably means is that, yes, okay, players will have a set potential when you first start franchise mode, but because it's more organic, that's going to fluctuate a little bit more depending upon the ice time they get, depending upon their formation, where they are in the ice, how much ice time they're getting, what sort of numbers they're putting up. So hopefully you could pluck some more gems out of the lower ranks of the draft, the lower rounds, and they can still come good. And equally, I think EA very much wants more of the very, very top picks in the draft, the sort of top 10 selections of any draft, to be much more NHL ready. And one of the things that they've done there is also made sure that there's a greater stretch in ability and a greater spread of the ratings for NHL ready players. Typically in the last few years we've seen that almost every single team in the NHL, their players are generally rated around about 80 overall, all the way up to the mid to high 90s. No teams really had players in the 70s unless they were facing injuries or unless they were a pretty poor team. NHL 18 has seen this range of overall abilities stretch out a little more. So most teams are going to have players in the 75 to 95 range on their NHL roster. This obviously has the knock-on effect that means that your higher rated rookies have a much better chance of getting to the NHL much sooner. You can throw your first round pick into your lineup and expect them to compete better at an earlier stage. The trading engine has also been adjusted. It's hopefully going to allow for more blockbuster deals, especially when you approach the trade deadline. Teams are going to be more aware of what their needs are, what they have to give up dependent upon their situation, whether they're a contender or whether they're in rebuild mode. And they're going to be more willing to, say, for example, give up a high potential youngster if they're contending for the cup this particular year. Equally, teams are going to have a better understanding of their pending restricted free agents and unrestricted free agents and have an idea of who they actually want to re-sign. And if they know they're coming up to that re-sign period and they need to make cap space for any potential new contract, they know they're going to have to trade away some of their assets to free up that cap space. Equally, you're going to see more people up on the trade block if teams want to keep hold of their stars that are currently on cheap contracts that are up for renewal. So hopefully that adds a little more diversity to the franchise mode as a whole. EASHL is up next. Now, we know that EASHL was a huge focus for the NHL dev team last year. There was large whole sweeping changes about how your players were developed, how you unlocked arenas, jerseys, customization options. So I think that EASHL this year is going to take a bit of a back seat in terms of the number of improvements you're going to see. One thing that is apparent, it's that the threes mode that you can play in NHL 18, you're also going to have the option to play a 3 versus 3 EASHL mode. Seeing as EA Sports on average said that most teams comprise of just 2 players, then 3 versus 3 modes may suit them much better because it's going to be a more open style of game. You're going to minimize the impact of your AI teammates. You're in control of your own destiny a little bit more in a 3 versus 3 mode. And no doubt some of the other changes we're going to see in EASHL include things like new equipment, new hairstyles, no doubt some new celebrations. Oh, and mouth guards, judging by the teaser trailer. There are no new player classes that are on the agenda at this moment in time, but we did see in NHL 17 that there were a couple of EASHL updates throughout the course of the season, adding things like more logos and customization options, as well as I think it was 2 or 3 more new classes. So it's something that the development team is going to be monitoring, especially if they want to flesh out particular classes for 3 versus 3 mode. If one particular class seems to be setting a precedent and being picked more often than not, then they might start switching things up a little bit. Be a pro mode, not a lot here in terms of improvements, which is a bit of a shame to see considering games like FIFA and Madden are getting a full-blown story type mode for the Be a Pro function this year. Not going to be happening in NHL, which I can kind of understand because the size of the development teams for FIFA and Madden are absolutely huge compared to the development team for NHL. But there are a few tweaks to the Be a Pro mode. Obviously, all of the new gameplay functions are going to make its way over to Be a Pro, and coaching feedback is going to include stuff for some of the new things that you can do. So things like deeks, things like the new deeks, the new passing system, they're all going to have their own coaching feedback. And also some of the AI changes are hopefully going to impact the way that your teammates behave on the ice. Otherwise, the main addition for Be a Pro is the fact that you're able to request a trade during the season. And they're also tweaking the logic that there is currently with sending players down to the minors or calling them up from the minors onto the NHL team. The development team want to make this much more realistic. I know that all of us have experienced situations where, you kind of sim the odd game here or there, but you're putting up a huge number of points, then all of a sudden your coach takes you to one side and says, yep, I'm sending you to the AHL because you're not performing as we expect, or because you've simmed some games. Don't like that myself personally, so if they can tweak that, I'm all for it. And now the biggest modes that EA Sports have no matter what the game, and that's Ultimate Team. So one of the things that is going to make it over to Ultimate Team in NHL this year is solo challenges, similar to what you find in FIFA and Madden. I'm going to assume that they're like mini games that will reward you with additional coins, and there could also be things like squad builder challenges that you see in FIFA as well, where you pick a certain group of players and you make a team based on some certain parameters, and that's going to give you a reward of coins or maybe special cards. There's also note that EA are going to be tweaking the returning user bonus, and especially something that of note, if you've played previous versions of the NHL games like NHL 15, 16 or 17 on the current generation of consoles, the game is going to recognize that, and they might give you some unique uniforms and some unique content in that way. Sets are going to return, and they're going to be tweaked. Hopefully there's going to be some sets that are easier to accomplish and that can be reworked in a number of ways. Synergies are also returning, and we're told that they will get a revamp as well. I'm sure we can expect some more news soon, specifically about the changes to Ultimate Team. The last thing that I want to mention today is the fact that there is going to be an NHL beta. This is going to start on the 25th of July and run to early August. I think the 4th of August is where it's currently due to run to, but we all know last year in the NHL 17 beta, they extended that for an extra few days or so. To sign up to the beta, you do need to have a valid EA account, an Origin account, and so if you sign up on their website, the link is in the description, you're going to have an opportunity to get a beta key for either PS4 or Xbox One. The beta has been confirmed to have the new threes mode, but also online versus and EASHL. No Ultimate Team in the beta mode this time around. And there you have it. I'm going to leave you now with the gameplay trailer, so I hope you're really looking forward to NHL 18 as much as I am. Really looking forward to the new deeks and the gameplay changes. Really looking forward to the defensive skill stick and how that is going to play out. But let me know in the comments below the most important feature to you, and if there's anything that's missing, something that you desperately want to see added, let me know about that as well. But thank you ever so much for your time. I've been the Beanie 101. Hopefully I'm going to see you in my next NHL video, but have a good day, and I'll catch you again later.
Hey kid, let me give you some advice. Work hard out there. Act like a gentleman. Keep it simple. Be humble. Respect your elders. Get to the gym. Get a real Stay in school. Keep your head up.
Once was a kid, all I had was a dream. More money, more problems. When I get it, I'ma pile it up. Now I'm dope on the bread, we can toast so fresh. How we flow, everybody get their style from us. Once was a kid with the other little kids. Now I'm ripping up shows and the fans going wild with us. Tell mommy I'm sorry, this life is a party. I'm never growing up. Was a kid, all I had was a dream. More money, more problems. When I get it, I'ma pile it up. Now I'm dope on the bread, we can toast so fresh. How we flow, everybody get their style from us. Was a kid with the other little kids. Now I'm ripping up shows and the fans going wild with us. Tell mommy I'm sorry, this life is a party.